What's up, YouTube? We are back, sitting here in my little workbench / apartment desk. Been asked this question a lot, so I wanted to make a video dedicated to this question entirely, so that anytime someone has this question, I can point them to this video and they can get the information they're looking for right away. Before we get started, I'm just going to ask that you give the video a like and comment down below any questions that arise as you're watching the video, and also subscribe for any more content regarding any Acuras, Hondas, and stereos. So first things first is, what is a DIY kit? What comes in it? How does it work for me? So here we're talking about a 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, otherwise known as the third generation Acura TL, and what you need to interface with the car so you can install an aftermarket radio and keep your factory navigation if you have it, your steering wheel controls if you want to, the factory subwoofer, and use the factory amplifier to power all the speakers. Now, if you do replace the factory radio with an aftermarket radio like one of the ones here, you will lose your factory navigation route guidance and any other media that would play through the center channel speaker. The center channel speaker is the one right above the radio. It's very low powered speaker. It doesn't really affect the sound stage, but it does play your route guidance, turn left here, turn right here. So just know that you will lose that. There's no way to keep it. Most aftermarket radios don't have a fifth channel like that. Amps do, and if you want to get in, you want to switch out your factory amp for another amp, then you can make it work so you keep that factory center channel, but it just doesn't make sense. It's too expensive to do so, and once you change out the factory radio, you won't even notice that it's gone. So you might be asking yourself, what the hell is all this in front of me? And the first thing I want to talk about is the DIY kit. So in a box shipped to you once you purchase it will be these three items. So the first thing you'll get in the DIY kit is the 957815B, which is the Metra dash kit that allows the factory radio to, an aftermarket radio to fit in the factory location. And that way it's done is with this faceplate. So this trim panel allows you to fit a regular double din into the factory location, and please ignore that I have this separated out from a radio. It's from another project I was trying to work on. It didn't turn out the way I wanted to, but ended up using it here, so oh well. So this dash piece, this dash panel will fit into the factory location, as you can see, and allow you to put an aftermarket radio right here. And along with this panel are these other trim pieces that mount the radio and then the climate controls from the factory unit as well. And they do a pretty good job with their illustration of how to remove everything, so you could see, and then how to install the trim panel and the screws you're going to need and stuff. We have a video on this. You can see our DIY. This is just a summary of what's really in the DIY kit, and then a wiring tutorial. So that's the first part. The second part is this 20-pin connection, which hooks up to your factory radio. So if you have a 2004, a 2005, a 2006, a 2007, or a 2008, they all share the same 20-pin connection for the primary speakers, your power and ground, your illumination switch, and the 04s through 06s have their power antenna line here. The 07 and 08s have it through their dedicated plug. So the 07, 08s have the 40-pin plug, and then the antenna turn-on wire, which has the antenna signal, is right here. Instead of it being the 10th pin here, it is the, I think they refer to it as the third pin, because this can hold 3 pins. So as the third pin on here for your 0708s. And then for an 0708, you have a 40 pin, and here's your factory sub interface, your amp turn on, and then this holds the resistor needed to maintain your factory navigation working. So we also sell just these in case you already purchased one of these or it came with the radio you bought. You can go ahead and use this. You might have to wire in some RCAs for better sound quality, but if you're not really a sound quality guy, you just want your radio to work, this will get you out of trouble. Either one, the 26 or the 40 pin, this will get you out of trouble. And by hooking this wire up to your aftermarket radio's blue wire or blue-white wire, it'll tell the factory amplifier to turn on and you'll have sound again. So again, in your DIY kit comes your dash trim panel that you're going to need, your two interfaces for connecting to the factory plugs and retaining your navigation, your factory amp, your factory subwoofer, and all the factory speakers except the center channel. And then if you have an 0708, then you get, instead of this 26 pin, you'll get a 40 pin, and then your antenna interface with the power turn on for the antenna. And then of course, along with all of those, you get a set of instructions. Now these might not make sense until you have the plugs in front of you, but here it just gives you some disclaimers and then an overall diagram of what connection does what. So if you have any questions, you can look through this quickly. And then the other thing, this is also on our website, so if yours gets coffee or whatever on it, you can easily replace it. Now, you're planning to change the radio out in your car. You want to go with something inexpensive. It's an older car, I can understand. Affordability is one of the things that we focus on here at MobileMax. And you're trying to decide on a radio. Maybe you're looking at radios on Craigslist. Maybe you're looking at radios on eBay. You're trying to keep your radio cost maybe to like $80, $90. Around this price point is where you're dealing with units without touchscreens. Most units without touchscreens from Pioneer, Alpine, Kenwood, all of your major brands will not have 6 RCAs. So if you have a touchscreen, it most likely does. If you don't have a touchscreen, you have to be very careful, because unless it's above that $100 mark, it usually does not have 6 RCA ports. Now, what do I mean by RCA ports? Those are these connections back here, and that are red and white. And on a more complicated radio, hold on, let me grab one. On a more complicated radio, like this AVIC here, this is an 8100 NEX, it's a navigation unit. It's a nice little unit. You're going to have a ton more of RCA ports and a ton more ports in general. But what you're looking for is ports that are labeled rear output and then front output. So you could see we also have aux, audio and input. These are no good. You need front output, rear output, and then subwoofer, which is this output right here at the bottom, but you can't really see it too well. But just those are the ports you're looking for. And I just brought this out so you guys could see that there are radios with more ports, but just because the ports are there don't necessarily mean that they're going to put out the signal that you need. So now, back to our current situation. So you bought a cheap radio, eBay, Craigslist, maybe somewhere online, you got a really good deal, and you find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh man, I did not notice that these did not have 6 RCA ports, and you didn't find this video until now that you're trying to rectify the situation because you don't have all the speakers working in your car, or you have distortion in your car at higher volumes, or maybe the factory amp isn't turning on so you have no sound in your car. So now you're here, welcome. Step 1 is you need 6 RCA ports to get everything in the car functioning as it should. So now you're like, oh man, what do I do? So in this situation with 4 RCA ports, you can rectify this. If you only had 2, you'd be in a lot of trouble. You could still fix it, but I recommend switching the radio. If you're in this situation, you can use a Lineout converter to tap into the rear speakers and turn this either into your rear output or your subwoofer output. And that's what we're going to have to do for our current harness. So this is a JVC plug. It's not for Pioneer. These are just example radios. But we have a customer who has a JVC, and they have this situation going on. So we need to wire in a line-out converter. Now, what does a line-out converter do? It takes a high-level input and converts it to a low-level input. So a high-level input will scale rapidly with when you turn the volume, which will send a stronger signal to your speaker, which is what you want. But you're not sending a signal from this radio to your speaker in our application. You're sending a signal from the radio to the amplifier, and the amplifier is sending a signal to your speakers. So because of that addition of the amplifier, you're sending a stronger signal than the amplifier can handle, which results in distortion, and that's why your speakers sound like garbage at like 7 or 8 volume, because this was wired incorrectly. So in order to solve that, you need to send a low-level signal, and that's something that this little unit will do. They sell a bunch of these different brands. You want to go with someone respectable so there's not noise in it and you don't hear like buzzing in the speaker. So the install bay makes decent stuff. This will work just perfect for what we need it for. So I'm going to show you how to wire that in and how to use our DIY kit to put everything together. And then something else I want to talk to you about is the radio selection. So if you are looking for something cheap, you don't listen to CDs, that's where you'll get your cheapest radio, is if they don't have a CD player. It lowers production costs, so they're able to pass the savings on to you. So this is an NVH S600BS, and this unit does have the needed 6 RCA ports. It also has XM, which this other radio lacks. Now XM is really not a big feature, but maybe some of you really enjoy it and you want to keep it, so that's where you got to go the bump up. This unit is an FHS500BT. This unit you can see is rather used, but usually you'll find these on eBay for about 80 bucks. This you probably won't find for lower than 100 or maybe 99, or refurbished at like 79, but it's very tough to find this for cheaper than that. But just know, whatever radio you're looking at, maybe you're looking at an Android radio, you need those 6 RCA ports that say front, rear, and subwoofer for your install to be the simplest and go easy with your Acura TL. Alright guys, so we're going to get into the wiring now. I just want to mention that for the Acura TL, the easiest module to use is the ASCW-1 because it will auto program itself, so that's what I'll be showing you here. But there are other options. You can use an SWIRC, and here's what that unit looks like. Yeah, I kind of have a mess, sorry. But it is a little more involved. The installation of this unit is a little more involved because there's programming involved to this unit. So you have to turn it to set the right radio, and then once you are pressing buttons on the vehicle, you'd have to press buttons on this unit to program what button does what. This allows for a lot more customization of what buttons do, but it is a little trickier to set up and not really a plug and play. It is cheaper. It's normally like $35 compared to the $55, but here, as soon as you connect this to your vehicle and you hold the volume up button, it takes care of the programming itself, and that's why it's a little more expensive compared to you doing the programming. Now, if you're having this installed, this is probably the unit that they will use, or this is a unit you can ask for so that maybe they can save you a little bit of money. And they go, oh, I know you have the ASCW-1, but if you use the SWIRC, would you be able to save me a little money? So that might be a little negotiation tip for you. But just know there is another way to do this. You don't have to do it with this. And also, if you're using an Android radio, such as a Joing or an Aodo or most other major brands of the Android units on Amazon, will have 2 wires that are referred to as steering wheel pound, or like steering wheel positive pound and then steering wheel no pound positive. One of those 2 wires can be hooked up in Hondas and Acuras directly to the steering wheel control wire, and the radio can decipher what the buttons do instead of these interfaces. So you could save yourself some money that way if you're going to go with an Android radio and not have to use any of these. But again, in our application, we're doing a JVC radio, which is very similar to a Kenwood. So you are going to need a steering wheel control interface. We talked about this. We'll just talk quickly. We talked about the harnesses. We'll just talk quickly about the colors so that you can see what is what in case you have a question, and that's all you came here for. So this is your constant 12 volts, meaning this always gets 12 volts. And then here's your ground. You'll notice that on our harness, the ground is looped. So if you look here, it loops back because this is for the steering wheel control. That needs to be grounded as well. Without this, your steering wheel controls will not work. So it wouldn't be just to not talk about this guy. This is the connection that all the major retailers will sell you. So, you know, on Amazon, Sonic Electronics, Crutchfield, all major retailers buy this connection pretty cheap. So they sell it to you pretty cheap, and it'll work if your car didn't have an amp and you didn't want to keep steering wheel controls. So again, this is your antenna turn on. So people think this is for the amp. This doesn't turn on the amp. This turns on the antenna, so you end up with no sound. Then you have your 12 volts, then all your speaker connections, and then you get two illumination controls, which one is the illumination switch and the other one is the illumination control with like how dim or how not dim you want it. You only need to hook one up. But anyways, what I'm getting at is here you don't get your steering wheel control positive, which is that third wire in, which is red. So you see blue, red, red. You don't get that third red wire. You can see it's missing, and you don't get this black wire. So that means you can't get your steering wheel controls to work unless you wiretap those cars in the vehicle. So that's where we're an extra value with the DIY kit, because those come wired into our harness. So you don't have to wiretap anything. You just wire them right away instead of having to wiretap in the vehicle. So I just wanted to show you that. If you're wondering, you know, why would I buy this instead of this? And that's one of the reasons, along with the RCAs, that will help for this particular vehicle. So now, back to the color, sorry. So you have your yellow, which is constant 12 volts, black, which is your ground, so this just needs to go to ground. Have your illumination switch, which will dim the radio, undim it. Again, your antenna turn on. Then you have your switch 12 volts. Here's where you need to be careful with our DIY kit. I wish we would have picked better colors, but this is where we are. This is your switch 12 volts, and then this is your steering wheel control positive. Normally when we ship this to a customer, we'll label this, or if not, we'll put shrink wrap on it so you can tell that it's not your switch 12 volts. It is in fact your steering wheel controls. So again, antenna turn on, switch 12 volts, steering wheel control, your illumination, your constant 12 volts, your ground, and then you have your 4 RCA connections, which are labeled front right, rear right, front left, rear left. And then along with that, you get your 26 or 40 pin connection, which have your resistor to keep your navigation, your factory navigation working. It has your amp turn on wire, so this is the amp turn on wire for the factory amp, and it has your subwoofer interface, so you could send signal to the subwoofer. And then if you have an 0708, colors are the same, subwoofer interface, the resistor you will need, and then your amp turn on, and then this needs to go to your power antenna if you have one. As you'll see here, we don't have a power antenna, so these two wires will go together if we have an 08 or 07, and would go to the blue wire coming from the aftermarket harness. All right, so back to our current application. So what I'm going to do for the sake of time is I'm going to wire our wires together loosely, so to call it. I'm just going to twist them together for now so you could see which ones go with which. But understand that this is not making a connection, and this isn't how you should do it. It's just so you could see what wire goes to what. So again, we only have one blue wire coming from our JVC plug. So that one blue wire is going to go to our two blue wires, which is our amp turn on and our factory antenna turn on. Then we're going to match yellow to yellow. So these would go together. And then black to black, and then orange to orange, blue to blue, And then here's where you want to be careful. So your switch 12 volts, which is this wire, and if you're not doing your steering wheel controls, then those are all the wires you would have to hook up traditionally if you had these 6 RCAs. But remember, our situation is different because we are doing steering wheel controls. We have a JVC, and we don't have the needed 6 RCA ports. So I'm just gonna solder these together, and then I'll continue the next part of the video so these are out of the way. But remember, these are all color matching. You want to match your 3 blues to your blue white or blue from your aftermarket plug. You want to match your reds. You want to match your oranges, your blacks, and your yellows. Now, if you are going to be doing your steering wheel controls, just know that on this connection, you only need 3 particular wires. I'll show you what they are now. So with the little tab at the top, it's this red, this black, and this red with this gray red. So you can just take those out and then tape this up and out of the way if you wanted to. You can unpin it, whatever you want to do. Those wires aren't necessary. You only need these 3, and your black and your red go to this red and this black because it needs power. So red, black, and then this 3rd wire, I'll show you where it goes once this is cleaned up so it's not as messy. Alright guys, so for a newbie, someone really doing this for the first time or their 3rd time or 2nd time, I just wanted to kind of show you the best way to do this. If you have solder, if you don't have solder, I recommend soldering, not necessary if you do a good job with this. So we'll do our, what color can we do that won't be affected? We'll do our oranges because they'll be easy. Okay, so one of these tools is great. You can easily just throw the wire right in there and this will take care of it. So a tool like this, normally 10 bucks, 8 bucks. You can get like cheap ones at the dollar store, but they will be cheap and they might not work as well. But you line it up with how much of it you need to cut. You can see it starting to press, and then you just do it and it cuts the wire for you. You don't have to worry. And then get a little bit more there. Okay, and then to make sure this connection that won't come loose, twist them together like so, really as much as you can. And then you want to tape this up with electrical tape. And it's a pretty solid connection, and once you get the tape in there, it's not going to come loose. I don't recommend this, but again, I'm assuming here you don't normally do this. This is going to be your first time in a long time or first time in a while, so you need a way to do it. This is one way. If you're going to solder, then I don't recommend twisting them in that form. I recommend twisting them this way. So instead, you're going to make one straight wire and you begin to twist them onto each other like so. Now this is good because it allows you to solder across this way. This is what I normally do, and that'll hold the connection tight, and you have a straight wire with no bends or turns, so it allows you to go how you need to, instead of, if you did it together, then you'd have something like that might limit you. This creates just a little bit of extra length so you have the flexibility that you need, and you would just solder that. And remember, you can use electrical tape, but I recommend some of these guys right here. Will save you a ton of hassle. Now, if this is a part you're uncomfortable with, you appreciate the information, but you're like, you know what, I'd rather just not have to deal with this. I don't want to mess a wire up or screw something up in my car. We do sell a complete harness which has all of the necessary connections already wired in. So like we spoke about, here's that 20 pin plug, here's the 26 pin. This is for a Pioneer, so this one goes to the Pioneer plug. with all the wires already in it, and then your steering wheel control interface already here, and then the needed RCAs already complete. You don't have to wire anything, you just plug everything in. If you're doing a backup camera, you're putting in a parking bypass, or if your radio, your Pioneer radio is really specific about its vehicle speed sensor for some particular reason, all three wires are here. They are color matched. You can look at your factory plug that you have with your radio, figure out which wire does what, or for general guidance, it's your parking brake wire, your backup camera, and then your vehicle speed sensor. And they come capped off, so you don't need to touch them if you're not going to be using them, and you just plug everything right in and it just works. Also, we do custom harnesses like we're doing here. Well, we will provide everything to you. We have suppliers that provide us with the necessary connections. So this was for a JVC, but I don't know if you guys can see, I have a couple others here for other radios. But we can help you put a radio in your car by providing you with the harness that you need if you feel like this is too much for you. If you don't have the time or rather not be bothered, again, another option for you. And if you are up for the challenge, you do want to do this yourself, you want to save the money, I'm gonna finish wiring this up and then I'll come back to the next step. I just wanted to show you how you would wire something, how a newbie would wire something so that they could get this installation complete. Alright guys, this next part is a little confusing, so I'm gonna do my best to explain it in the clearest manner that I can. For this part, first let me show you where I am. So we hooked up, let me show you the wires we hooked up. So we hooked up our amp turn on and our power antenna to our blue-white wire, which is our coming from our aftermarket plug, which is our amp turn on. It usually will be labeled amp turn on. Then we went ahead and we wired in our ground, so our ground to our aftermarket radio, and then our ground to the 20-pin plug from the ASCW-1. So that needs ground and it also needs power. So then the power is the red wire that goes to our 20-pin for the switch turn on, and then goes to our aftermarket radio as well as a red wire. Then the orange to orange, that was easy. Yellow to yellow, that was easy as well. So now we're left with, on our 20-pin plug for the radio interface, this red wire, which is our steering wheel control wire, positive. So remember, our steering wheel control negative needs to get hooked up too, but that's looped into the original ground, so you only need to ground once. So now we need to hook this wire up. This wire is going to go to this red, this gray wire with the red stripe. That's where that will get hooked up to. Then these sets of wires you don't need, and then your speaker wires, if you had 6 RCA ports, like the second radio I showed you, the 600 BS, then these connections for your speakers are not needed. Once these can just be taped up and you don't have to worry about them along with those. But alright, so here's where the confusing part comes. This wire is going to need to get hooked up here. Steering wheel positive to this gray wire with the red stripe. That is done. Now your steering wheel control interface, this 3.5mm aux looking plug will get plugged into the back of a radio, like a Pioneer or an Alpine. But on Kenwood and JVC, they don't do it that way. They use another wire in this harness right here. And the way they do that is they will, those same wires will get hooked up, so that red to this gray with the red stripe. Then instead of this going to the back of the radio, this plugs into here like so, and this brown wire gets hooked up to the blue yellow wire on the JVC and Kenwoods. Now here since this is from a supplier who isn't necessarily dealing with all the factory colors in his warehouse, production warehouse, whatever, he put in a yellow. So he lets us know, hey, we don't have blue yellow. I'm going to do a yellow for you, so you know that's where the steering wheel control needs to connect. So this wire would go here. But on your plug in front of you, this wire is going to be blue yellow, not yellow. So this blue yellow will end up going to this brown, and this brown white will not get hooked up to anything. Again, Kenwood and JVC does this along with a couple other manufacturers. I don't know why. It makes it a little more complicated. Just wanted you to understand that. So I'm going to wire that in. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Then the last thing we're going to do is, because we don't have these 6 RCA ports, we need to wire another set of RCAs. What we're going to do there is we're going to match this to our rears. So our fronts are these pair of grays and this pair of whites. We don't want the front sound stage to generate a subwoofer signal. We want our rear sound stage to do so. So those are these purple pairs and these green pairs, and we're just going to match green to green and gray white to the purples. Now I'm guessing they come with these grays and greens, so you can match cross stage and you can get all sound through the rear. But since this is a sub, we don't need all sound, we just need the rears. Alright, so I'm going to first hook up our steering wheel control positive to our steering wheel control wire for our ASW-1 interface. Then I'm going to hook up our 3.5 millimeter connection to this other connector that came with the ASCW-1. And then I'm going to run this brown wire to this yellow wire here. Again, this wire on your harness from your radio, from your aftermarket radio, will be blue-yellow. So that's where that goes. It'll say remote cont, most likely. So I'm going to get that done, and then I'll come back, and then we'll wire this in on video, and then we'll tape it all up. Alright guys, so here we are. Here's our mess of a looking thing, but everything's functioning, everything will work how it's supposed to. So let me run you through all our connections here. So this is the 26 pin plug that'll hook up to the factory radio connection and allow your touchscreen to work through the resistor loop that's here, allow you to connect to your radio, the subwoofer, and turn on your amplifier with this wire right here. Then you have your 20 pin connection with all your needed RCAs to hook up to all your other speakers, your illumination, ground, constant 12 volts, switch 12 volts, and then your power antenna. Then we also wired in a ground and a switch 12 volts for our ASCW-1 connection, which is this little plug right here, and then our steering wheel control positive right here. Then, because we're doing a JVC or a Kenwood, we had to wire in this connection instead of just using this. Normally this will go straight to the back of the radio. So because we have to do that, then this brown wire only gets hooked up to the yellow-blue wire that is on your aftermarket radio connection. On here it's yellow because this is a replacement. It's not an original OE from the manufacturer of the radio. This is a replacement unit sourced from one of our vendors. So they put in a yellow. They let us know that the yellow is the blue yellow, and that's why it's yellow in ours. And then these connections for your speakers, if you have these 6 necessary RCA ports that we talked about earlier, so you have these, you do not need to mess with these. You can just tape them up and you're done. If you don't have the 6, like this radio that we showed earlier, you're going to end up hooking these here. Right now it doesn't matter. Alright, let's do it the right way. So rear left, front left, rear right, front right, and then you have nowhere to hook up your subwoofer, and that's our problem. That's why you need the 6 or at least 5. There's no place to hook up your subwoofer at all. So what we're going to do is create a place. The way we're going to do that is out of here, then this connection will plug into here, and from here these speaker connections is what we're going to leverage. to create a low level signal with our Lineout converter that can then give us another interface to our subwoofer. So here you have two connections. You're only going to use one because the TL only has one subwoofer, but I just wanted to show you that if you don't have these 6 RCA ports, you're not going to have anywhere to plug this in, but you can create one like we're doing here with a Lineout converter and your speaker out connections from the radio. So I'm going to wire this up, and I'll show you once I'm done what it all looks like. And I'm also in the process going to remove all these extra unnecessary wires from all the harnesses. So when I'm done, my plugs will be missing wires that will be in yours, but just remember to tape them off. You can unpin them if you want to, but it's kind of a pain in the ass. You're better off just taping them off. We do it because, you know, it's for our customers. But alright guys, I'm going to finish that and I'll come back and give you some more tips on this harness. I removed all those pins from here and the unnecessary speaker wires from here. And a great unpinning tool is this thing you can get off Amazon for around 10 bucks. Just note that some of these are a little thin, so if you're using too much force they will bend and break. But there are different thicknesses here, and it's just a great tool. This is my second set of these. They will break, just know that. They're inexpensive, they're 10 bucks. I do have another set of tools that are like the key ones. Those things suck. This is what I recommend. But anyways, back to this. So we're all done here, and I'm gonna try my best to walk you through the connections again. So 20 pin, 26 pin, this is what connects to the car side. So this is what you're gonna plug into your 26 connector in your car and your 20 pin connector in your car. You're gonna have another white connection that isn't going to be used, so don't worry about it, just went to the side. And then your antenna connection, it's gonna be off to the side. You just want to pull it out, undo the little zip tie that it's in so you can get more room. Just be careful, don't pull it too much. You will yank it from where it's sitting, so just be careful with that. Now, since we have a JVC radio and we're keeping our steering wheel controls, we had to wire in our ASCW-1 interface, which is 3 wires, switch 12 volts, ground, and then your steering wheel control positive, which is coming out of our 20 pin. Then we have our amp turn on and our antenna turn on coming to our 26 pin and our 20 pin. Then we have all of our speaker connections going to the radio from the vehicle. Now the radio that this customer is using doesn't have the needed 6 or 5 RCA ports, so we're left needing an extra RCA port, which turns out to be this guy. So to give ourselves an extra RCA port, we use the Lineout converter. The Lineout converter got hooked up to the rear speakers because it's going to be for the subwoofer, and this is a very simple hookup. You just wire it in like so, and then our left sub, because the TL only has one sub. You could use a Y adapter here, 2 to 1, so you could get both sound stages if you really wanted to, but that'll work just fine. Then for our steering wheel control interface, the ASCW-1 normally interfaces through this 3.5 millimeter aux cable. The Kenwoods and JVCs don't have that input. This, if you see it on the back of your Kenwood or JVC, is most likely for your microphone or an aux input. It's not for your steering wheel controls. So then your ASCW-1 is going to come with this. You are going to hook this up to here, and then your Kenwood is going to have a blue-yellow wire that you're going to run to. On ours it's yellow, excuse the color difference, but that's how it's hooked up. And now this customer is all set to go. He just needs to hook up these 4 RCAs to his radio, plug in this connection to his radio, and plug his ASCW-1 into here, and everything should just work as it's supposed to. A couple of more tips and things for you to know for your TL is that the factory amplifier supports 2 ohm speakers. So if you're going to do this and upgrade your speakers, you need to make sure that you buy 2 ohm speakers, because if you put 4 ohm speakers in, it's going to reduce the amount of output that the amplifier can put out to each speaker, and your volume is going to be lower. So your upgrade is going to feel like a downgrade, because the sound quality might be better, but the overall volume of the stereo will be less. So just keep that in mind. You want to use 2 ohm speakers. If you're not up for this challenge of all this wiring, we do again sell a complete wired harness, and we do make custom harnesses like so. You can order those on our site. The last thing I want to mention is we have a complete kit that is just like the DIY kit, but comes wired. So normally the DIY kit comes with everything that you have to wire. A complete kit comes with everything you need for your installation already hooked up. You just plug it in and away you go. The complete kit's also available on our website. Any TLs from 04 to 08, and this is what comes in it. Along with it, now we are including parking brake bypasses, and you can also purchase a parking brake bypass from us for your Pioneer radio or for any radio that needs a parking brake bypass. These will work. Just let us know your model number of your radio if you're not going to be using a Pioneer. But this we're also can install for you. So if you purchase one, just put in the notes, install for me, and we'll take care of it for you at no more charge than if you were just buying a regular. If you buy one of these and you buy one of these, just say install for me in the notes, and we'll take care of that installation for you. You don't have to worry. But again, this is the DIY kit. This is everything you need to install an aftermarket radio into your vehicle. And we also will start offering very soon, check our website, Pioneer unit, a touchscreen Pioneer unit, which is most likely going to be the 300EX, and then a competing Kenwood unit and JVC unit. Haven't been able to set anything up with Alpine yet, but you'll be able to purchase all of this in one, everything you need to install your radio. Follow one of our videos and you'll be all set. But alright guys, I hope that information was useful. I hope that all your questions were answered. This is really the most you're going to have to do if you are already in a situation where you have a radio and it doesn't have the 6 RCAs. If you want to simplify your life, make sure you buy the 6 RCAs, a radio with 6 RCAs, so you don't have to put up with this. And I will ask you to please like this video. Please subscribe for more content with Acuras, TLs, Hondas in general. We're really trying to grow our brand and start working with more vehicles. We get a lot of requests for other cars. So I'm trying to work with junkyards or whoever I can to get my hands on these vehicles so I can actually test stuff. I'm looking at electrical diagrams. I'm trying to grow into other vehicles, but I need your support. And the way to support us is please like this video, subscribe, tell your friend if he has a TL or an Acura, and then comment down below any ideas you might have on how we can expand to other vehicles or what other vehicles you'd like to see us next.